All right, today we're pulling back the curtain on a world that's usually deep in the shadows, but believe me, it affects every single one of us. I'm talking about hacking. But here's the twist, we're not just focusing on the villains. Nope, we're going to talk about the heroes. And the best way to start is with a story.
So picture this. There's this guy, Dan. He built a trading company completely from scratch. I mean, this thing was his baby, his life's work, and it was taking off. He was really successful. Clients trusted him completely, the money was flowing in, everything was looking up.
And then, just like that, it all came to a screeching halt. A malicious attacker, what we call a black hat hacker, got in. It all started with just one single cleverly disguised email. From there, they stole customer logins, demanded a huge ransom, and when Dan said no, they just drained his clients' accounts. Gone. In a flash, Dan lost it all. His business, his money, and maybe worst of all, the trust he'd spent years building.
You know, Dan's story is absolutely devastating. But the scary part, it is not unique. Not at all. This kind of thing happens every single day to businesses of all sizes all over the world. So to really get a handle on how we fight back, we first need to understand the battlefield itself. So what is hacking, really? Well, at its core, it's pretty simple. It's just finding a weak spot in a computer system or network and using it to get in without permission. That's it. The act itself is kind of neutral. It's like knowing how to pick a lock. What really matters, what separates the good guys from the bad guys, is why you're doing it.
And let's be crystal clear, the scale of malicious hacking is just staggering. We're talking about a global emergency. And if you want proof, you don't have to look far. Remember the WannaCry ransomware attack back in 2017? Man, that wasn't just some computer glitch. It was like a full-blown digital pandemic. Get this, in just one day, it infected more than 230,000 computers. It was what they call a worm, and it just spread like wildfire. And the crazy part? It tore through systems all because they'd missed one critical security update. One. And this thing went everywhere. It hit computers in over 150 countries. We're talking about huge global companies like FedEx and Nissan getting absolutely crippled, their operations just stopping, dead in their tracks. Okay, now let's talk about the money, because the financial hit is almost hard to wrap your head around. By 2021, the estimated global cost of cybercrime hit $6 trillion. Yeah, that's trillion with a T. That is the sheer scale of the problem we're up against. So how in the world do you even begin to defend against a $6 trillion threat? Well, you fight fire with fire. You bring in a completely different kind of hacker. You know, in the security world, we like to talk about three types of hackers, and we usually define them by the hat they wear. First, you've got your black hats. These are the bad guys, plain and simple. They're breaking in for money or just to cause chaos. Then you have the gray hats. They're a bit more complicated. They might hack into a system without asking, but then they'll tell the company about the problem, maybe hoping for a reward. And then you've got the white hats. These are our heroes, the ethical hackers. They have explicit legal permission to do what they do. Their entire job is to use their skills to protect and defend. They are the digital cavalry.
So what do companies actually hire these white hats to do? Well, it's often something called a penetration test, or pen test for short. Now, this is way more than just a simple security scan. See, a basic scan is kind of like walking around a house and making a list of unlocked windows. A pen test, well, that's when you actually try to climb through that unlocked window to see if you can get to the jewelry box. You're actively trying to break in to prove just how real the danger is. Now, I want you to get that Hollywood image out of your head. You know, the hacker in a hoodie, pounding energy drinks in a dark room, code flying across the screen. Real professional ethical hacking is pretty much the exact opposite of that chaos. It's a highly standardized, super meticulous, and incredibly disciplined process. A pro pen test follows a really strict game plan, broken down into clear steps. You always start by setting the goals and the rules of engagement. Then you move into reconnaissance, basically gathering intel. After that, you find the weak spots, and then, and this part's crucial, you safely exploit them, just to prove the risk is real. The whole thing wraps up with a super detailed report, and then you go back and retest to make sure all those security holes are actually plugged. And yeah, they have a whole toolkit of specialized software to help them out.
For example, in that early info gathering phase, they might use a tool called Nmap to see what digital doors and windows are open on a company's network. Or they might use something like Sublister to find every single web address a company owns. It's all about drawing a detailed map of the battlefield before you make a single move.
But here's the thing. You can have the most advanced, most expensive software defenses in the entire world, and they can still be completely bypassed. How? Because often, the biggest vulnerability isn't in the code at all. It's us. It's the person sitting at the keyboard. You could call it the human operating system.
The legendary hacker Kevin Mitnick had a famous quote about this. He said, "You can't go to Windows Update and get a patch for stupidity." And that just perfectly nails the problem, doesn't it? You can always update your software, but human nature, our curiosity, our trust, our instinct to be helpful, that's a much, much harder thing to patch.
And the data on this is just overwhelming. Think about this. Over 80% of all data breaches involve a human element. 80%. It is by a huge margin the #1 way the bad guys get in. So what do we call this? The official term is social engineering. And really, it's the art of manipulation. It's about tricking people into giving away secret information or clicking on something they shouldn't. It's not about hacking the computer, it's about hacking the person using it.
And I can almost guarantee you've seen these tricks in action. You know, those phishing emails that look exactly like they're from your bank, or an attacker leaving an infected USB drive in the company parking lot, just waiting for someone's curiosity to get the better of them. It could even be as simple as someone calling you, pretending to be from IT support. All of these attacks prey on our most basic human instincts.
Okay, so we've established that the threats are both technical and human. So what does it actually take to become one of these protectors? What's the roadmap to becoming a digital guardian? Well, first off, you absolutely need a rock-solid technical foundation. I mean, you have to deeply understand operating systems, think Windows and Linux, so you know the very ground you're defending. You need to know programming so you can see how software is actually put together and where its weak points might be. And maybe most important of all, you need to be an expert in computer networking. It goes back to that house analogy. You can't protect a house if you don't understand its doors, windows, and all the hallways connecting them. But just having the skills isn't quite enough. To get hired as a professional, you need to prove you have them. You need validation. And that's where industry standard certifications come in. Things like the Certified Ethical Hacker, or CEH, and the really advanced hands-on one called the OSCP. These are more than just pieces of paper. They prove that you not only have the knowledge, but that you know how to use it responsibly and effectively.
So if we boil it all down, what's the most crucial takeaway? It's this. The entire philosophy of ethical hacking really comes down to one core idea. You have to learn to think like an attacker. You use their tools, you use their strategies, and by doing that, you can find the holes in your own defenses before they do. It is the absolute ultimate form of proactive defense.
Look, in the end, this is so much more than just a job. It's a real commitment to keeping our shared digital world safe. It's about protecting businesses, like Dan's, from being completely destroyed. It's about securing the data that all of us rely on every single day. And that really just leaves us with one final thought, one big question. In a world that is so full of digital threats, who is going to step up and be the guardians?